I'm here to talk to you today about building a transportation system that works for all of us, whether you lived here for decades or you're visiting for the first time. And so I want to talk about the challenge that we face. Our island has like a unique transportation puzzle. We're connected to the world by ferries, which ferries are our lifeline, but they're also a constraint for us. Right now, if you don't have a car or you can't drive one, getting around Orcas is very challenging. So if we think about it, we can think about workers who can't afford ferry tickets, car maintenance, children and teenagers who want to get to an after-school job in East Sound, or get around the island to visit their friends, without needing their parents to transport them. Folks who can no longer drive for health reasons. Visitors who want to explore the island without bringing more cars over to the island. These are just some of the folks that we aim to serve. So we're not just talking about inconvenience for people, but we're also talking about a matter of equity. Like when transportation becomes a barrier to folks, then it affects like who the people are who can participate throughout our community. And so, in our current system, what are the hidden costs that happen with our current system? So every car that comes across the sound to our island, there are hidden costs attached to that. There's environmental costs, the emissions of the vehicle, the tire microplastics that are shed on the road, the actual crossing of the sound by the ferry itself. Right, there's an environmental cost. So the whole paint of the ferry leaches heavy metals in the ocean. So for every vehicle that transits the sound, there's an environmental cost that sometimes we don't think about. There's an infrastructure cost, like it strains our infrastructure, and that also is an environmental cost. If we have more cars on the island, we need more places to park those cars. There's more congestion on our roadways. There's an economic burden, the fare that we pay to ride on the ferry is not completely paid by us. And I think most of us know that, but some folks might not think about it. In the cost of every ferry trip is subsidized by the taxpayer, and so it costs more to bring a vehicle across the sound than it does to provide foot traffic across the sound. But we don't provide a realistic transportation option for people coming over to Orcas other than bringing their car across. And that's why we have so many cars that come across all the time with these great costs. Here's what we see today. Many of us on the roads through the island, we travel the same routes regularly. If we think of, there's a number of hamlets on the island. We have Deer Harbor Hamlet, Olga is hamlet. I guess Tobay is not considered a hamlet. We have Orcas Village. We have East Sound. but predominantly, a lot of the traffic that we see is traveling across the same routes every day. And so, along that line of thinking, it's very practical to some degree that a rideshare system that actually can support the carrying capacity of more than one carload might actually help address some of the both financial, economic, and environmental issues that we have with transportation on our island. So anyway, that was kind of an opener about some of the problems that we're facing. And so next I want to talk about.
And just think about everyone, because we had more people show up. There we are. What I'm handing out has a little bit of a note. You guys want to hand in any notes to us? Colin has been working on this idea for 2 years. He has it. And then I'm Robin, Island Stewards, everyone who wants it. So this is Colin Williams, and I'm Robin. What we did, Island Stewards helps to a lot of people across the country. And we found out that people really want a public transportation. Doing hardship rides, but a lot of people can't, especially for concerns or just teenagers that are running around. We have some people who do when I have seen anyone else trying to do. You are welcome to come into any notes or ideas or anyone this week, anyone need notes or not? What we're trying to do is figure out how do we get this to be a possibility. And I think that we are in one of the most beautiful places with great, fantastic people, but we need some outside of the box kind of thinking of how we're going to get something that's reliable and something that can help people get from point A to point B. Really hard time getting people to participate in county meetings and meetings like this just because they struggle having a reliable transportation source. So we have some great minds in here, and thank you everyone for showing up. But Colin, if you want to keep going, no one else needs paper or pencil. Can I pass anybody around? Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Robin. And I'm not sure if I'm going a little too fast. I'm a little nervous. So if anyone thinks I'm going too fast, please let me know, and I'll try to slow down a little bit. So I talked a little bit so far about the problems that we face, and so now I want to talk about like a vision that we have about a community centered solution. We're proposing something that starts small but thinks big. A community operated transit system that's free to use, flexible by design, and built around the needs of people who live and work in our community, and also supports our visitors. So, like, what could this possibly look like? Picture this: we could have 3 interconnected routes running 7 days a week, and so the routes would be Orcas Central, which would travel from the ferry landing to East Sound, possibly including a loop through Crescent Beach, Mount Baker Road, Orcas East, connecting Moran State Park, Olga, and Doe Bay, and an Orcas West route, which would serve West Sound, Deer Harbor, Saddleback Mountain Preserve. And so what would be some of the key guiding principles of this system? Well, we want to have reliable service, and we want to have reliable service, and it needs to be highly available. and so reliable service 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the summer, and perhaps 8 a.m. To 4 p.m. during the winter time. We want it to be frequent enough to be useful. So we think in looking at designing 3 routes, it appears that somewhere along the line of 45-minute to hourly schedules would be the frequency that we could actually achieve with the 3 routes operating as synchronized routes. So we need the routes to be synchronized. We could think of an example. If you have a 45-minute loop from Deer Harbor and you want to get to the ferry landing, well, you take about half that time to get to the transit hub from Deer Harbor. So maybe 20 minutes, and then from that transit hub, it might take another 20 minutes to get to the ferry landing. So it would take you to get from Deer Harbor to the ferry landing about 40 minutes in this synchronized schedule. And so that's assuming like a 45-minute service interval between all the routes. If it took an hour, maybe it would take you an hour to switch between the routes to get from your hamlet to the ferry landing. And this is just an example so that you kind of have an idea about how long it would take to get around on this system. To mention why this could work, the idea here is not about replacing cars entirely. It's about giving people choices, right? Like some days, like if you need to go to the hardware store, you need your truck for a lumber run, of course you're gonna use your truck to go get lumber. You need to get somewhere immediately, you're gonna do it. But this is giving ourselves choices about, hey, if I want, I can go get on this shared form of transportation, maybe meet other members of my community, and put one less car transiting the road. My family who is visiting me, maybe children or someone else, have an option to get around the island without the necessity of a vehicle. Other members of our county, folks coming over from Waldron Island, San Juan Island, Lopez, have an option to get around the island as a foot passenger without needing to bring their car over. And they are residents of our same county. So the system we're talking about designing is trying to help us design a solution for both locals and visitors. A few more. I'm going to get into a discussion session here in a few minutes, but some of the community benefits that we envision, which I probably already mentioned, independence for non-drivers, teens, elders, people with disabilities, those who choose not to drive, visitor support, reducing car ferry pressure while improving access, environmental stewardship, like reducing emissions and less road impact using the shared resource. Economic access, like connecting people to both jobs and services on the island. Social connection, building community through shared travel, and inter-hamlet exchange, like making it easier for